got this all the way down yet. I'm going to share with you on the News Underground. We really, my brother, I'm going to turn it away to make it better for you. We're going to have to move on this side. I'll move this table back a little side. It'll look better for you. Whatever happened to the elevation question? I guess it ended up. You all right? You can see this TV okay? Okay. I'm almost might need to get in between them. Between here and there, like that. You all tell me if you end up any better. I think I may be able to come from this side. For you. There we go. I think that'll work something. See you too. Good afternoon. I really appreciate all of you taking upon some of the afternoon to come out with Brother and hear Brother report to you from the informational underground. My job this afternoon is to share with you, take it down, to share with you this information relevant to the assassination attempt of Brother Dr. Khallid. I am only several weeks away from the major project related to going to meet the Boulay on their July 8th to July 15th convention. Many of you have heard over time are declaring and preparing for that moment. In the midst of that moment, in fact, Brother Khallid was scheduled to speak in Baltimore in the day before the Boulay convention, which would have attracted several thousand people and got everybody ready just to move only a few blocks over to where they would be coming in, preparing for their first day of activity. I'm just talking low. I don't get excited until we get to a little later on. I just talk low now, I'm setting the mood. Can you hear me all right?
What date is that, brother?
July 8th to July 15th is the Boulay convention.
What day y'all will be there?
Probably sometime during this program, I'm going to just lay the schedule up there. And over the course of the 8 days, there are certain days that are far more strategically important to intervene on. In understanding process, it'd be very good and effective strategically to kind of state the set pretty strong. Kind of get it lined up in and out, get your ducks set up in and out, and that when you intervene, the intervene is based upon the most likely successful moment. And still have enough time that they ain't out of town so that they can't just get up and walk away. So I am finalizing that. I end up intervening 2-3 weeks to deal with the situation relevant to Brother Dr. Khallid, because if someone can be laced in security, if someone could be militaristic in thinking, if one could feel prepared to defeat an intervention, but that there be one, that one would take a chance and make an intervention, then that's telling of a moment. That's someone perceiving that the way we're set up now, that for someone to come in and swipe at this brother without consequence could, in fact, heighten other goals. I don't know if you all remember Spiro Agnew. You all remember Spiro Agnew? I used to talk about his book, he wrote Go Quietly Around. But Spiro Agnew was dismissed because they didn't want him to go up. So rather than let him go up, they took him out. And so when they had Watergated Nixon on a certain day, in hindsight, understanding that Agnew, who was far more aggressive against other whites, liberal whites, he had been governor of Maryland, knowing that Agnew would have sinned if you took the other guy out, they just sat back a minute and said, well, hold on, don't take out Nixon yet. Let's move Agnew, bring on forward, and then we'll move back on Nixon. So the guy we picked today is the guy who's going to be the guy he don't know we control the circumstance. And so I make a suggestion. Going back and looking at some things, we're going to look at a few things. But if you go back to Barbara Walters, if you go back to this interview and that interview and this book and that book, you might get the feeling that the white mailers are lurking. And the white mailers are going to force up a circumstance that's going to compel succession. So any white for wickedly planning must understand that this plan for succession, see, I was in Chicago, and I know how to beat these plans, because there was a group of people who, in fact, the case was called What Really Happened Here in Washington, who was the only black man in the history of politics to get 99% of the black vote. The whites have always been able to buy into the base of black votes. So when you get a brother come like that, you understand that the whites are dealing with his extraordinary potentials. So when you get ready to decide you're going to move him, you got to set a guy up. And so when I did the Harold Washington lecture, and I'm researching information about was he assassinated, I went 4 or 5 months before he died and actually saw them setting a guy up to replace him when his term wasn't undone for 3 years and 8 months, which is about as long as a 4-year term you can have left. I mean, unless you had just got elected the day before down there. So there's no likely possibility that you even stand up for anything other than breathing. All the rest will show up for 4 more years. So I found them prepared the guy. So when I started assessing assassination, it was a lot easier when I saw the pre-movement. And I suspected you that somebody wanted to give Minister Farrakhan. It was a year ago they was doing this little program, Law and Order, that kind of simulated an assassination attempt in Los Angeles. And I don't know if you all remember seeing it. I mentioned it in some of the tapes. In the period when it came out, it was a Law and Order program that had a brother with wild rimmed glasses, with people looking like the nation standing point, and one wild white boy in the audience is alleged to have shot at the speaker, killed him, and he goes to trial, and zealot-looking Muslim-like witnesses who say, you know he did it, he's a JDL, ADL white man, blah, 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 blah. But the boy ended up getting out. And they closed the door on the program saying, I must be the CIA. But it was a Muslim layout. That was a year, damn near to the day that the shot was made in college. And that auditorium that was shown in Law and Order, and I really thought about how I would bring the damn thing. See, 3-4 times down the line doing this lecture is going to be perfect. The shit is still so raw, stuff is still happening. I'm kind of talking out to you where we are, which ain't nobody really into it this deep. Most people don't really understand that you can't stop another brother from going down. You won't stop yourself from going down. I mean, you know, I can stand up and say I can disagree with the brother over this or disagree with the brother over that. But if I let that be what separated me from the brother and let the white man come in there and make a move, now my brother is up for jeopardy because brother can be gotten. If you can get this brother, you can get this brother. I take it personally on that level. And since we sort of move alike, in that when you come into a situation, you don't know what it is. You don't know who it is. You don't know how it's going to come down. And when you're dealing with the people, one thing you know is that it will be consistently inconsistent. That's all you can vouch for, that there's going to be problems. How do you manage to ride those problems by the test of your skills? Not how well things work perfectly. They don't never work perfectly. Back. So this climate is set. Now, let's go back a little further. There was a big difference between the Donahue show and the Barbara Walters show. I don't want you to miss this, because I don't want to say it from another black person's feeling. Your tape on? Good, because I'm missing my tape, so you're going to have to send me the tape, because it looks like I messed up. Heck, maybe I'll do it while I'm doing it. There's a pair of high-grade tapes I have sitting up here on the table. Might be, and I'm really messing up, I'm missing the moment. Yeah, it was up here. It was 2 high-grade tapes. Everybody saw it. I saw it on there, over there. Thanks, sir. In fact, what I'll do is I'll use mine in place. I'll play an old tape as piece. And you plug this in the microphone? Okay, I'll get yours. You make a copy for me of the tape? Okay, I'm gonna, you hold that, you put my copy on there when you make them. But I'll just go ahead and, I don't want to miss the mood. Y'all waited a long time, and it takes a lot out of me when I do this lecture, because when I look at little Farrakhan, when I show you this picture of the shooting, and we all know about little Farrakhan being on the set, and if you saw the little program of Khallid speaking that day before, you see little Farrakhan standing on the stage, you know, and knowing this little man is 9 years old, and he's standing there going, 9 years old, guy. I mean, this is scary, you know. And we were at that program at Howard together, and little Farrakhan was up there on the program, you know, and the brother is so alert, astute. I remember when I went backstage, he said, "How you, brother Coakley?" I mean, he's a piercing young man, you know, and when you actually, I'm going to go back and show you this little part of the shooting itself, there's a little girl standing there, I mean, she ain't but this tall, and all of the people are wrestling with the gunmen and stuff, and the little girl is abandoned by her parents, and these people are scuffling and the shots are going on, and this little girl is just standing there. You see her in a red dress, just standing on the edge of the people, and that pisses me off on another level, that somebody would come out and strike at this brother, there's his family there with him, and they gonna gun him down, children, everybody, all on the set. They just gonna do this terrorist act on the brother, and then it's on that holiday weekend. See, Memorial Day is the fallen soldier holiday. Now, if you get to pick a brother, any brother you can pick in the nation that's a soldier, military thinking brother, that's Brother Khallid. So when you take Memorial Day weekend, this is the last day you can mess with a black person before the riot potential of June 1st to September 1st. Don't think the hunky don't know the moment when he don't fuck with you. He understands that the heat, D.C. just had 12 straight days of 90-degree weather. You know FEMA be on double alert when it be hot like that, because the temperament and the heat of the household and the aggression and the spirit of the people, combustion like that. And they understand, so they back off. Don't think they don't back off. They back off when they think they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable in those moments. So Memorial Day, May 30th, is the last damn day you got to mess with a brother for September 1st. Now, I want you got to study assassination. Harold Washington, day before Thanksgiving. John Kennedy, day before Thanksgiving. And that Thanksgiving day had everybody stuck away at home. When they called on that second Stacey Coons Powell trial, when they decided they finished on Thursday. When did they read the verdict? Saturday morning, 7 a.m. LA time, 10 a.m. East Coast time. Why did they pick that? Because Saturdays and holidays, you're in what you call subliminal organization. When you're at work, you're organized. You might not be organized for achievement of a goal, but you're organized by the fact that you're all at work together. School, you're organized, and so your combustion spills off of your accidental organization. But when you're at home, you got to get out. And since they felt they've broken down street organization, they don't fear street organization, because they believe they neutralized it. Remember me talking about before the attack on the extraordinary individuals, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, saying to you, O.J. Simpson, if they want to get in there, saying to you that there's a certain thing they don't want to happen with people with money. And so, because they're moving on these individuals, they believe they got control of their structures. Tell me if I'm too close to you.
Oh, you're cool.
All right. So if they believe if they got control of other stuff, now free radicals. You know, where do they say cancer come from? It comes from a cell that's a free radical. Really, that's about white supremacy. What will really kill white supremacy is free radicals. No, I mean, really, they take all of the biological, physiological sciences and really their spirit for them. Within those sciences are clues in on their own survival. And they act these out publicly in cold. Anyway, so I go all the way back, and I look at the Donahue show. And when I'm looking at the Donahue show, I recognize that as I'm looking at Brother Khallid, he ain't naming the names of the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, he did mention Oppenheimer and De Beers and so forth. He ain't so forth naming names of people, but his attitude about dealing with Donahue and not punking a brother with that hunky type of thing that get all in your bottom walls, all on your face and shit, talking down to you, putting you down, second guessing your answers when they ask you a question, trivializing your dialogue, the attitude was different. And black people sometimes just need to be seen, not to eat no shit. It's an attitude thing. You may underestimate how much the agency assesses attitudes, but I'm going to show you, even the CIA saying, when you go into school, assess the attitudes of the leadership. Can you depress them when you can't pay them? Would somebody do 20 minutes when they get less money instead of 4 hours because it's not, they can get paid more for being longer? Do you do the lesson differently when it's 200 people than when it's 40 people? Can they affect the attitude of the exchange based upon interjecting into personal things that appear to be beyond somebody's control? These are things that are measured, and they only carefully elevate people who are vulnerable to those levels of penetration. At the Donahue show, how many of y'all saw that Donahue show? Okay, let me tell you just to show you how tight shit is. You saw the brother in there who snatched the microphone. And he said, we're not anti-Semitic. He had on African garb. That's brother Dr. Sims. I believe he was from Philadelphia. I'm not sure. He has a Brother Man comic books. Anyway, no, he's in Dallas. This is the brother, no, maybe it's the same brother.
Brother Man?
Yeah. Well, I guess that's his brother. He's the brother in Dallas. But it's Dr. Sims on the Donahue show who takes the microphone. You remember he does, there's two brothers in African garb. Brother Steve Washington, who was shot at Riverside with Khallid, and Brother Sims, who would have been there with him, but he went to the New York Black Expo to do the comic book thing. He calls home. This is 2 weeks after Donahue. He keeps calling home, and his wife don't answer. He calls up Brother Steve to meet me. Let's go on to my house. Ain't nobody answering. When he gets home, his wife is in the bathtub dead. So the press ain't gonna never signal this. The wife ain't gonna never say nothing, but Brother Man's wife was in the bathroom dead. This was just 2 Mondays ago. Remember him. Now, I believe Donahue got in all kind of trouble for that show because he couldn't control it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
At that show, Donahue lost his right to film an execution. See, if he would have aided and abetted in the successful execution of Brother Khallid, then he would have got the right to look in on another one for ratings. Reward. When the white boy at the Riverside police say Khallid broke the agreed upon security procedure, he's not declaring that Khallid jeopardized himself because that's a subjective statement alleging that the back was more secure than the front. When I show you the back and the front, you'll see that that statement is only plausible based on how little you know. But that's not the point. What he's really telling the whites who he was to supervise, the process of the killing was, I would have done what I was supposed to do, but he went the other way, boss. You understand what I'm saying? In other words, if you get an assignment, remember the movie La Femme Nikita? Yeah. I always told you, pick into those assassination movies. It was Point of No Return on the American level about hit killers and jobs that they do. Well, if you remember, on the first killing, they set the woman up to get killed. Because they told her to go out the men's room and slide out the window, but when she got there, it was bricked in. So they was really killing her off. The fact that she made it was due to her own success. But the only point to it is that the police chief at the Riverside campus and the Riverside police there, Riverside is a right-wing, redneck area that's anti-black. They be whipping up the young brothers of Fresno, Cal, all these little suburbs, Riverside, a lot of publications of the right-wing boys come up out of Riverside. It's but the police chief of the campus named Rosenfield, a liberal Jewish guy, who had been having trouble in the area controlling his policemen who had an excessive tendency to beat up young black males. So you got a school right across from a public housing project with a big fence with barbed wire across it to keep them from coming over. So later on, when I show you the hole in the fence at the back door with the bushes cut that would have allowed someone to shoot Brother Khallid in the back door that they had him agreed upon going out of, that back door was where they really wanted to shoot him, and I'm going to show you how the police found it after our police found it. You're going to see a brother out there saying, well, I'm in the back, and this is this little runway, and they kind of blocked in. Now, you remember seeing Dr. Khallid and them as he's drugged through the gymnasium? He's already shot. Sure. And they get to that back door, and back in the audio, before they killed the audio version of that, they said, go in the back, get the cars, get the cars. You hear little guy going, Daddy, 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 as they carry him, the brother carries him in his arms. You'll see all of this, because I need to refresh your memory. Whenever, and this is part of the reason why we do this, is to teach what you should do when something happens. Whenever any event like this comes down, snatch all of the information. Don't weigh it. Don't decide you've had it already, because they change things subtly from the 5 o'clock news to the 6 o'clock news. So even though you may think you're repeating it, catch it again. Catch it each and every time, because I can show you the same shot 4 times and show you the audio in, the audio out, the visual rolling, and the visual still, as people adjust the things that others are not to know based on what they're finding out. So your job in a revolving moment is to snatch everything. If you had snatched the OJ stuff, you would have heard the day when they said we had clothes in his washing machine with blood on it, which wasn't true. Or that the lady said he had the bag over his hand on the airplane, which wasn't true. Or the glove that they found at his house, or near his house, which wasn't true. And what you need never to forget is who told you this in the first place. You see, the reason people are comfortable in doing that is that ain't nobody going backwards kicking their ass for doing it. Well, look here, you said the glove was at his house where you get the information from. And if you don't come up with a good excuse for your ignorance, then I'm going to whip your ass for your conspiracy. Sure. And see, that has to happen. And that protects a brother's life. No brother's life will ever be protected when there's not punishment. Some people have been suspended for their lapses in security on college. And I've said very clearly, suspension is not enough. Everybody's got to weigh this out on their own ways, but when I lay it out, you'll see the weight it out. That it's just a little deeper than the moment. And so Khallid gets elevated. Now, I'm going to tell you in my conclusion, I tell you that the assassination attempt to kill Khallid goes all the way up to the National Security Council. Now, the reason I say that is that people don't really understand how an assassination is instructed. In other words, if there's a guy named James Edward Best, or Lee Harvey Oswald, or Andrew Bremer, or Sirhan, or remember the Meyer Kahane dude, who supposedly does the shooting in front of everybody, runs outside, grabs another guy's gun, postal inspector, shoots the people chasing him, goes to trial for shooting Meyer Kahane, that got right in the head, and got found not guilty. And I know enough about how a hunky get rid of somebody. He got rid of him. He don't want no more Meyer Kahane than he want Doug Khallid. He don't want no extreme. Because he coming up with a moderate mainstream middle full of alligators and crocodiles. I even seen them in Baltimore. Mainstreaming. At a time when we done caught up with the moderate middle, they done pulled all kind of people out they had to try to retool their faces. Now you will greatly underestimate what you see happening before you, but if they wasn't losing on the street level, they wouldn't go to such great extents to pull all kind of people out their hat to put believability back in the unbelievable. We didn't caught up with their ass. Now, I don't take that lightly, because that's why you see an attack and misunderstand why they would attack there and not someplace else. See, somebody tell me, you know, it's a real thing of whether that Farrakhan got to go to the meeting in Baltimore. That was really big. But really would have been a test is, could Brother Coakley go? Could Brother Khallid go? If Brother Khallid got to the door and they all repudiated, could he come in the room? That would have been a test for me. Other things appear to be already worked out. And somehow there's a mutual protection society going on that is not a spiritual alliance. I draw more. That's not a spiritual coming together, so they're using God as the cover. I'm calling weight on it. And if ever you come to take responsibility for having led, then take some responsibility for we having bled. We heard it. Who in charge of all this hurt? You see, everybody won't claim where we're going. How did we get here? And as long as nobody has no computation, ain't nobody held responsible for nothing. And everything kind of, you get to do it again. And says, no longer will anybody separate us again. Now, last time they said ain't nobody gonna separate themselves at the Black Caucus. That's the last time they said that. But Khallid was strong enough to break the wedge. That was the wedge. Jesse broke, Sheamus broke, and Fume held and said, I'm waiting for the brother to give us the word. And the word came, the brother was suspended. These were done for white people. These were done for reasons you have yet to have been told. And I know enough about what had happened to smoke that shit out. Now I state my name on. Some shit is up in the back room. So we see we had an office in the back, ain't got no door on it. That's the way the people should meet, in a way that ain't no door on it, because I'm going to tell you, they went up in the door and they come out with some things that are not good for the little people. Always the guarantee is that they'll get all of us, but not all of us. That now, you know what? I just saw the movie Geronimo the other day. What was heavy about the flick Geronimo, you know, it was a flick that was just out a couple of months ago. They whisked it right on out the movie thing. But the scouts who was helping the white man, at the end when Geronimo surrendered, they say, okay, scouts, surrender your weapons. You will ride the train with the rest of them to the reservation. Your service is no longer needed. And I don't need that to happen again to know they'll do that. Right? You understand what I'm saying? It's an awesome lesson, but I don't need to repeat that. And so we don't want them to walk with the white man's word, because the white man's word is he speaks with forked tongue. Meaning that his word is not his bond. The brother and I talk, all we say is that we're going to be brothers, our word is our bond. That's all we got. And that's it, brother. This is brother and I. We talk, say our word is our bond. That's all we got is our word is our bond. That's our power right there. Our word is our bond, period. And so we've got a climate that could let whites test who would stand to defend the brother after everybody been told back off of it. I only got 2 tapes over here how the Jews tried to kill Steve Coakley, because when they did me back in 88, 89, and had my ass out there on economic starvation, had me so hot, people was afraid to walk up to me in public in Chicago and buy a tape from me for fear that somebody would be shooting a picture of it would ruin their jobs. Because they went all up on people's jobs. ADL, J called people in, the bankers called all the grand people in. They really shake you down on this stuff. And all they want to know is, if I fuck with them, are you going to bother me? And so then they set him up to give the National Security Council, which is the president, the vice president, the head of State Department, the CIA man, the National Security Agency man. These are the heads of all of the divisions of government that would have compelled a lead that would make an assassination possible. The one little dude out there doing the shooting, he can't control the media's inability to get to the bottom of it. I will show you the media say he acted alone. The only problem was the boy was still unconscious. They established that the motive of him shooting at Khallid was that Khallid fired him from his position in the nation. I will show you people coming forward, interjecting that into the arena, and I'll show you backwards that it ain't even true. And the boy was still unconscious. They had a motive, and they had who he operated with, and the boy ain't even woke up yet. And Khallid and the rest of everybody weren't talking to no whites, so there was no one to get knowledge from. So you got a climate. And I can see someone get up off of the Donahue thing and say, yeah, we better do it now. I mean, you sit up and think about this shit now. You see somebody get up and say, nah. See, this will mess up what we got going. We turning steak knives into butter knives. Now here come somebody with a spear and shit. See, that offsets. Now I'm gonna tell you something. I wouldn't be here today. Now, I don't know how many of you all saw that videotape of Khallid and Jeffries and Tony Martin. And what I got an article in Chicago called it the Rally of the Anti-Semitic Dream Team. Just to say, look out now, wrong people are getting together. But Khallid was on that stage with Jeffries, who had said some things about Khallid a couple of weeks ago that made the brothers uncomfortable, but they still were on the stage together. When I was, let's go back in context. You got to follow me through a couple of my tapes. Those of you all who dig in the tapes, you can follow me. Black and Jewish Relations 93, Africa 93. In those two tapes, I say a couple of things. In Africa 93, I say, I felt something strange about this summit in Gabon, where the minister got with Jesse Jackson and Leon Sullivan and Dorothy Height and all of that. And I said then, that made me a little uncomfortable that they were giving such full play in the final call when only a week ago they was jamming up stuff we were doing on the street level. The NAACP is supporting a Jewish Museum of New York's roving exposition, which has a whole 1/5 of the roving exposition is a piece against me. Now, Ben Davis is the head of the NAACP. They're the co-collaborator financed by Philip Morris, Rockefeller Foundation, Esmark, Ford Foundation, etc., on this roving anti-Semitic thing. But on the same time, someone else will say this is a good brother. But then on the other hand, brother be used against me to justify that the whites and jamming me with brother co-consent. But just when we go to get brother for Spindard and Du Bois and the Boule, we close in on their whole role from the beginning and announce we going up in their house. All of a sudden, everybody comes to rescue their image. They can't change what they're doing. It's not a question about what you do, it's how you're thought about. All of a sudden, a secret meeting is held in Detroit, and Cornel West gets called a Cornel West. Get called a militant. They said, Ben Davis had a secret militant meeting in Detroit to plan a black summit. And Cornel West was one of the militants who were there.
One of theirs, ain't he?
Well, he was on Jesse Jackson's show last night. I don't know how much y'all saw him pontificating and shit. He's now at Harvard. Bill Gates has brought Cornel West to Harvard with him out of Princeton. Yep. So you got the double whole connection up in there. And that's one who does it for money.
Check.
And they know that by speaking against black things, which is what whites want to hear, whites will guarantee them financial security. That's what a whole mean to me. Okay. Let's go backwards. Brother Khallid does the Donahue show, and around the room you see brothers who look like, and for what?
Right. Yeah.
What did I say?
Look like.
Khalid's ass may have been wide open in the middle of New York on his most major move. It may have been. See, you got a problem here. You want to show the whites that you have punished him. But you can't control him. You cannot tell him what he can't do because he's a man. As he sums up, he's a roughneck. So when you take a warrior got to fight. You can't take no linebacker and make no doily passer out of them because they're a linebacker till they die. So you got this military man. And now you decided that you will suspend him, and you don't really mean it. Because you, at the end of doing it, you kind of start taking it back. So that by the time you finish, the whites are still a little mad you didn't do it clean enough. But the whites are glad to see that you did something. And now the whites move into phase 2. Well, if he let us go that far with him, maybe we can kill him. Now, when you hear how the Jews tried to kill Steve Copley, when they start standing up against the wall on me, I start hitting them with no reason. And I mean, I hit them, I started pulling and tapping and moving on people that I saw back up and that was setting me up to be killed. Such that it would be, well, you know the brother, you know, man, he was all into that thing. In fact, if you watch the news, you see white say, well, you know, he got it because that's the way he was. Yeah. You know, Kyle was his own thing coming on him. You know, he deserved that. Right, same thing about Malcolm. The shit was just really unfolding. And I believe the spirit of John Ali is back. Just as we brought Malcolm up, since everything is rolling back to Malcolm scene. If the whites believe they killed it one way and one way worked, they'll do that shit till it don't work no more. So let's say they think that work. I believe there's someone between the minister and Brother Khallid, because Brother Khallid will never break his love for Minister Farrakhan. And I believe Minister Farrakhan loves Brother Khallid. But there's someone in between them that means the nation no good. And the spirit of John Ali is back. And sometimes when you're on the inside, you have a hard time dealing with it. Sometimes it has to come from the outside. Because the inside kind of self-neutralizes itself. It's a situation where, as I get back to that conclusion, it was the National Security Council on the outside, but it was inside support that made it possible. It was an inside-outside job. So now we got to deal with where we are in the situation as opposed to how we like it to be. This could be a very touchy, ugly situation. Again, I remind you that if whites believe they want to make one move, if the goal of the whites is to destroy the nation again, and they believe that there is no extraordinary individual in the position like Minister Farrakhan, and if they decide that if there was a power struggle, it's like you going to kill Malcolm and Martin and you try to decide which one you're going to kill first. You say, well, we better kill the militant first, because if we kill the moderate first, it will only justify the militant's rationale for aggression. So we'll kill the militant first, and then we'll do the moderate, who cannot assemble his militants. Arafat, the head of Israel, has had to sacrifice all his little boys. All his key men have died for him to get the spot. You got to understand how he's played that they will give you a spot, but they're going to kill your lieutenants to take it. Harold Watson had two main dudes. One was total research and one was total political dealing. Both them men got stripped. One died of AIDS and the other died of a federal investigation, went to jail, just got out of jail, in 9 years. They stripped it and then put him in the hands of Upper Palace Guard. They took Clinton's people off of him. All his Arkansas boys from Stephanopoulos who didn't like the Jewish connection. The dude who had the gat and all them. This Siegel, Stephanopoulos and them who just right-wing hunkies out of middle America blocked the heavy international Jewish connection in the process from the transition team to the White House. But once they got to the White House, the Jewish boys stepped back in and then blocked all that Arkansas crew back out. Now Clinton is in the hands of another group of operators. You hear me now? In other words, I'm following a formula here that's pretty damn uniform. If you're studying these things, they begin to all look alike after a while. So here we are with someone maybe wanting to move this nation and believing that the extraordinary militaristic nature of Khalid would make vulnerable who they really want to replace the minister. And so they start to move on this brother first before they move on that brother later. And that brother better recognize that if he don't have to resolve this one, he's a goner. It don't have to be nobody's wish, it just has to be how the process works. And I remind Brother Khalid, remember Noriega. Because the U.S. government cut the streets off to let the palace guard kill Noriega. He bitch slaps them, takes their guns, they're all men, the bitch is not a woman thing, slaps them, takes their guns, takes their swords, whips them up and sends them out to office and hangs them. He goes to the podium, that's that picture where he holds that sword up. He's dangling that sword up, he's dangling the sword up and down, announcing that he had defeated an American coup attempt. And so at that point, when they couldn't take him, they took the country. They just took the country to get it. You understand? So as I turn back to these brothers, they have to be careful. Because the fact that they tried and failed, but that they tried, is an indication of what they believe they think they have in place. So now squads, counter squads, in squads, out squads, all type of retaliatory confusion has to come back at them, but they cannot now judge which way it may come. And that they got for getting in it. And you see it happening on a larger level for OJ, but on an OJ level, it is distracting from the Khallid investigation in LA on the street level. The OJ thing is distracting, and the boy might be out by Thursday. When the hearing comes down, he may be on the street, and we may have been jacked up for 2-3 weeks. Now, on a spillover, little black people will pick up on that white people can really do you wrong when they don't want you. He won't messing with a white woman and a Jewish boy. That really gets you in trouble. So everybody learned the white girl and the Jewish boy can bring all hell on you. Yeah. Right. You know what I mean? That's the lesson. Right. Keep your ass in home and it won't be no trouble. Right? And you see the one sticking with him the hardest are his son from the sister. That's his hardest boy. That boy loved him. He run through the police to get to his car, got slapped in the face by our cowards when he went up to the car. He been in the courtroom and he fought for the right to be at the jailhouse with him. And he don't cover his face when he come out either, like the sister do. And not to put the sister down, the sister, she just doing it differently. The sister from the sister. And but just see that blood, and they better pick up on that. Anyway. So we got a climate that will compel, you go to Howard. When I was in L.A., I was surprised that the community newspapers in L.A. were running front page black. Colin Powell speaking at Howard saying that this won't be no hotbed for anti-Semitism. Now, I'm supposed to give a lecture at Howard a couple of weeks ago called The Trial of the Oath Takers, and it don't happen. Which is how I ended up in L.A. was I do a radio show in L.A. about the things I was watching. When I watched the Khallid thing being shot in D.C., I'm looking at CNN and the shooting going on with the woman's head, but in L.A. on their CNN, they were watching Johnny Mathis singing. Me and my buddy on the phone together, right? So I said, man, turn to CNN. He flipped. We got lines, everybody's calling each other. Hit clip this, catch that. It's on. And now we're grabbing everything we can grab. In fact, I've looked at this shit 20 times. Every time I see it, I find something different. That's why you got to grab everything when grabbing is up and study it later, but grab it first. Once you get it home, you can evaluate it. And going through it again and again, Mom, I look at one shot and I said, man, this man holding a gun in the park. I wrote a lecture say, somebody found me this guy, I think he holding a gun in his coat. And the next day that boy was at the lecture, he had a gun in his coat. Just like I just looked reading the video. Yeah, that's the police. That's a brother looking like a nation with glasses, suit, looking like a nation got a gun in his coat. We wanted to check him. When I go out to lecture and say, I want this guy, the next day his ass was up in the lecture. But I didn't mean it. I was on security for doing this, and I was doing, okay, brother, as long as you check in, but I saw you on it. You see it. I'll show you what made me call him in. But it just goes to show you can see through stuff really if all people, I just went to LA, hey, you got a good video, we turn it in, we put the best picture together, I come back to the people and reported their stuff back to them to give them the best picture of what they had to assemble. And it come out really, really pretty good. It really come strong. What I'm going to try to do is to show you, I got to set it down, I got all folders set down here already for you. Each one of these folders, I was telling you now about that this program goes down at Howard. So we want to have a lecture at Howard called The Trial of the Oath Takers. And it reminded me of that thing I was talking about with Dick Gregory that time when he tells me that, he ain't really getting no thing about the boule in public, but because he's an alpha. And then he says, I ain't never revealed the handshake to my sons or my daughters or my wife, and I ain't gonna reveal it to you, but you better learn about that. That's when I started asking people that at the lecture, hey, somebody stand up and show the handshake, which usually people don't want to, which is then to show the people that some oath was taken that separates a good brother from a good brother due to the oath from a third person. And so we start theming on the oath takers as a way of flushing out, the role of the oath taker. And so we tried to have a program at Howard, and Howard closed the door on programs after the last college lecture. That anti-Semitic dream team move. And so we didn't get to have it. And the theme is solid. We got fought hard on the moment. And I'm going to show you what the flyer looks like. You got a flyer with you? I know I got one down. Oh, here it is. The Trial of the Oath Takers. And you can get an idea. You can, in fact, I show the camera so you can get it in there good. You can get an idea of why, if someone will get to see a gavel coming down on the logo to the boule, the scuttle bones, the chief of staff, the guardsmen, the masons, the metropolitan DC police, the doctors, all their logos are in that star that's being smashed with the scroll saying the Trial of the Oath Takers. I'm just going to pass it around the room. And so we didn't get to have that lecture. So I went to Los Angeles. I was on a radio show being interviewed. I went to Los Angeles, and I was going to show you part of the reason why I felt the program got canceled. I'm all hooked here, so y'all excuse me. I can't move too far because I'm on the end of my line here. But Let me show you something here. I want you to look at this. Here, get over here. Now look at this. This is a restaurant called Gusty's in D.C. At this restaurant is where the grandsire archon of the Boulay asked to meet with this gentleman right here. You'll see him on the videotape meeting with the grandsire archon of the Boulay, who comes to town because he's attending a National Endowment for the Humanities Board meeting. He's the vice president, the vice chancellor of Louisiana State, LSU, in Baton Rouge. This is his regular job. And so we're driving the brother down to his meeting at Gusty's restaurant with the grandsire archon of the Boulay. And you'll see that this is them over here in this booth right here. There'll be one other shot you'll see a little closer. The guy in the red shirt is the grandsire archon. And you see in a little second. And he's meeting with this kid. That was you on the video, right? Right? And here we go here, right here in this area here. I also have a still picture of it. They're up in this corner. There's, get that camera up there. There's Hebrew space right here. There's the brother right here. Sitting right next to him is the grandsire archon, Hugh Perkins, in a red golf shirt. Just so happened, I'll show you. Okay, I just see it for a second. Just so happened that found some people following us and stuff. Oh, there he is. Oh, yeah. I just hit him right when you see him the best. I also got a still picture I'll pass around. There he is right here. How do I freeze this? Freeze, false. No. P.S. No, it's not false. Really false. Oh, stop it. Right there. I can't see. Huh? 30 seconds? Oh, there we go. There he is right there. That's the grandsire archon of the Boulay, Hugh Perkins. There's a brother right there. There's you there, brother. Would you like to verify this video? Would you come look at this and for the audience that you know that's you right there? And this is the date, May 24th. This is just over a month ago. The lecture was scheduled for June 3rd. He comes to Washington, D.C. and calls this brother up and asks if he can meet with him at his favorite restaurant, Gusty's. I call my man, Brother Charles, and say, I think we better escort brother down to the meeting. Okay. So we don't want to leave brother down there all alone, you know. And but we better stake it out. So while I was across the street with the video camera, Brother Charles comes up here on the sidewalk. There's a menu right there. Brother Charles comes up on the sidewalk, pretending to read the menu, and hears him when he says, tell him what he asked. Oh, what he asked you.
Yeah, where have you heard and what do you know about Steve Copeland?
Stop. Now, Brother Charles walks up and hears this. After a while, Brother Charles is shooting pictures at them, and he turns to Hebrew and says, is that guy shooting pictures at us? He said, nah, he was ready to throw it. Bomb. Stop. We're home for the tape. We don't want to miss none of this. It's like, see, we had a making our news business. White and black. He's black, he's high, light-skinned. I'm going to show you his picture. You got the Ebony 100. You got the Ebony 100 most influential? Yeah. He's on there as grandsire archon of the Boulay. And probably could be the most powerful black man in America. You want we on? He probably could be the most powerful black man in America. Now there they are, that meeting. And so, Brother Charles is so excited that he hears him mention my name, that instead of staying over there, he comes across the street to McDonald's and tells me, he just mentioned your name! And so Hebrew gets scared, and I'm glad Brother Charles was there. Because Hebrew said, well, I know of him that I don't know him. Now, the flyer I just passed out was a lecture of mine that he was promoting. So the boy don't come right back at him then. He waits a little while, puts some dumb talk in the middle, and then he says, you say you didn't know Coakley. Don't you know the justice? That means he came in with the intelligence. Next thing you know, Howard University is announcing to everyone but us that the lecture's canceled. And the lecture was canceled.
What did they mention?
Right, there's an article here that they did left there and had a meeting at the Israeli embassy, where Israel and Howard University are working out their anti-Semitism. But I'm telling you, I'm all the way in L.A., and in the black paper, Howard is repudiating anti-Semitism, when Colin Powell, National Security Advisor, comes to give the lecture and mentions the anti-Semitism in his commencement address.
Check.
So I'm saying that who did they call to give the perception of whether this was a threat to Howard's credibility? In fact, the weekend Collins was shot, there was a half-page editorial from the editor of the Howard Student University newspaper in Los Angeles, LA Times, Sunday edition, the Sunday Collins was shot, saying, or accusing Collins and Brother Malik Shabazz in Unity Nation of destroying the 126-year history of Howard. Which just was right in the paper at the time of the shooting. Which kind of gave reason why you don't need him around. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. So, in climate, you with me on the climate now. You set up a guy that you have made a pariah. You let other people see that the people will separate themselves from him if you pressure them, even though they said they'd never be broken up again. Now let me go back. Africa 93 tape, I smelled something funny in the Summit in Gabon. I only got 2 Africa 93 videos and only Africa 94 in audio, which takes you up past there. I'm going to bring you up to there. And I smell something out. Next thing you know, this is May, the Summit in Gabon. Next thing you know, in August comes the March on Washington. Now, they in Africa with the minister, using the minister's credibility to penetrate deep into the womb of Africa. But the Statue of Liberty, it got a flat button. That's it right there. Charles telling me. Charles said that when they walk by, you heard him say, you know what this is. They should have gone down this way. They set up to the portal and find a close down and a motherfucker said, use my language.
You said, I heard of them, but I don't know them.
That's good. It's right his foot off, right? I'm going to have to sew his ear back on. I'll stop these things. There we go. Okay. And we out there now, I put the camera. And so at the point we tell the guy, well look, you got all these questions about Coakley, you want to meet with it? Right now, I'm right across the street, right? I'm just waiting for him to say, yeah, right? And actually, when I thought about it, I should have busted up on him anyway. I really, in hindsight, when the program got blocked and all those things come down, Collins get shot and all those other things, in hindsight, I should have busted up on him. I'll see him again in a couple of weeks, but I should have busted up on him right there. I think I handled that wrong in hindsight. I should have took more control of the situation myself and forced myself on him while he was sitting there at that restaurant. It's in sort of a white Bucky type of neighborhood. No friends. I just didn't feel comfortable about confronting him. I didn't never think that confronting him at that moment would have been the best strategy. I really wanted to see how he was biting on the bait. And right. And so that was why I didn't feel like that was the moment. And plus I wanted to assess him to see if he wanted to step up to the plate. And he says, and tell him what he says when you actually want to meet with me.
I got no problem, no.
And I have nothing to say to that Coakley.
No problem.
In fact, he says I was harassing D.C. Boulay, going city to city harassing Boulay, and Coakley doesn't know we're really good people.
Why were you so hard on the Congressional Black Caucus?
Yeah, it accused me of being hard on the caucus. Now that was intriguing because Gus Savage was my primary friend in the Black Caucus who stood up for me when I was being fired in in Chicago. And then they took a Rhodes Scholar, right, fit out of the secret society stuff we be talking about. Took Rhodes Scholar, Mel Reynolds, a black man. Redistricted Gus Savage put half white people in it. All the white people voted for the brother, Rhodes Scholar, and half the blacks showed up to defend Gus Savage, and he lost 50 to 25. Just like that. And out of the spirit of what it would take to go get them, they got them right out of the stable. We knew they had horses. Anyway. So our man was around. You need to understand, I don't ever want you to underestimate what you see going on, because the penetration is real. We deep up in their stuff. And every city we go to, when we read those names of the Boule members to the audience, and they start going to their houses or confronting them in the street or asking them what their mother's maiden name, other things, don't underestimate that. If you are standing up to help Brother Coakley, don't take it strange when things happen to you, not because you may have deserved it, but because no one wants you to have a right type of spirit of helping and advancing the teachers. The old thing is don't feed the teachers. So the teachers don't feed the people. And so I keep that always in the forefront that though we can have empty chairs on a program, don't think they don't get the message. When we leave here today and these tapes go out in all these different directions, don't you underestimate that you got the word and everybody else don't know. They'll get it. They just won't get it privately. It's going to scoop right in on them. But the word is passing. And our viewpoints are dominating in the victims' areas. And meaning that we have been able to galvanize victims. See, only a victim will fight against this. No benefactor will fight. No head of the Penn Foundation or somebody law school at the University of Pennsylvania who don't end up at the head of civil rights but end up making $10,000 a speech. They're not going to destroy the system. In fact, they'll even ask, having been spanked, you to work within the system. Lonnie Grenier, that was her move. Work within the system to make the change because the system is worth saving. What I wanted to play for you is a tape of Rodney King's attorney. Now, Rodney King got a $3 million settlement, and him and his attorney about to get some big money. So I'm in L.A. Giving a radio show on Stevie Wonder station. He kind of likes the boule stuff. You know, they always, I'm out there, they get me on, they give me pretty much free reign. And so they kind of shifted my role from making statements to asking questions. They kind of bring me on the air and say, well, we'd like you to come down to the studio this morning and be on the air. So when I get there, they say, okay, now, the next 15 minutes, you interview Rodney King's attorney. Just off the cuff. They're setting me. Something may come up. A radio network may develop up ahead that may plug in for so many hours in every urban city. And some of the black elite who are, I don't know, through circumstance or through hidden spirit, are coagulating and getting a little more militant as O.J. and Michael and Magic and Michael Jackson all get attacked. The others now feel that they're a little bit more vulnerable, and they're starting to try to think of ways they can protect themselves. And the old payoff Jesse Jackson to shake down the white man don't work no more. So having never bred a revolution, they're trying to go out and help foster one in their own way. It's not to implicate anybody, but I want you to understand that the pressure of the white man is compelling other blacks to reconsider what they felt was safety and security. And that's an awesome thing. Only the white man can do that for us. Anyway, there may be a radio network developing soon that'll bust into the urban cities, much like you get Tom Joyner's Top 40 run in all these different cities, the Top 40 jukebox hits and stuff. You may now have a strong talk channeled into the urban cities, knowing how I'm not too well received here in Philly on the radio. I know I did do a show a couple of, any of you all hear the show I did a couple of weeks ago? WDAO, yeah, y'all don't listen to that show? Okay, because I was on and I ain't heard nobody yet say they heard it.
Was it June 3rd? You said you were going to be here June 3rd. Was it June 3rd?
No, I was going to be at Howard June 3rd. And I said on the radio that Saturday, which was 2 Saturdays ago, I did it from LA, that I would be somewhere in Philly on Sunday. I didn't know the location. But nobody heard the show. Brother didn't hear the show. So we didn't get no plus out of that. But anyway, they thrust me to interview Rodney King's attorney, and I asked him about the oath. And I mentioned earlier about oaths. Oaths are important even when you're dealing with assassinations, because what would compel or scare a person not to do what they should? I need a couple of things here, and I'm hooked up too much to move. Water. One apart here. I want you to hear, to keep this up with you. Interestingly was a very strong statement. And right in the middle of his lecture, he said, tomorrow night I'm going down to that Marlon Gibbs place, and in the spirit of my brother Steve Copeland, I'm going to name your names. Yep. Brother Khallid, in the radio show he gave on KJLH, which is the same station that you hear me on Stevie Wonder's station in L.A. He hollered that next night in his speech he's going to do like Brother Copeland. And then when he gave his speech, he said it again. And what had happened was he met with some brothers out there who gave him the names of the Hollywood people. See, you can be saying something and be correct, but then when somebody asks you, you don't have it on you. So someone stands up and gives it to you, so someone asks you the same question, you say, I'm glad you brought that up. I don't name the names because I got them in my pocket here. So to name the names, people, my little spot in LA where I get my lectures, the Good Life, they had a little rally there for Brother Collins before he got there, and it was assembled that they would stand up to give him.
They were going to ask for more money in the punitive damage.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Now, I want to tell you something true about the Khallid thing. He was shot on a Sunday. On Monday were the first news stories. On Tuesday was the second round. Most of the nation ended on Tuesday. In LA, it had a Thursday and a Wednesday and a Thursday. After that Thursday, there's been no other story.
Strong reputation and all that. They were so correct.
And so, those 34 stories were very important because when Khallid was shot, they tried to provide people from Seattle who suggested that James Best was not the type of person who would do violence to another person. They perpetrated that publicly. And I don't know how many of you all videotaped your local. Can you all videotape your news stations here that ran it when it ran? One day, if you got anything you think is interesting, I wouldn't mind looking at it. For example, in D.C., the D.C. station ran this. Dr. Khallid was shot today after a speech he had given in South Central Los Angeles. Well, South Central Los Angeles is where he gave the Saturday lecture. After you saw him speaking at this rally, he went right across the street. Lamert Park is in South Central L.A. on Crenshaw. Right in there is Marlon Gibbs, has a 1,000-seat theater. So he went into Marlon Gibbs' place to give the lecture, and that's South Central L.A. But the D.C. media ran he was shot in South Central rather than in Riverside, which is an hour and 40-minute drive. Now that was interesting because somebody, so we got to go back to the newspaper people here, and say, how did you get this statement? And he said, well, Joe Belushi wrote it. So Joe Belushi in the back room, where did you get this shot in South Central? Because they did try to shoot him in South Central. They did try to shoot him the night before. That rally where the police attacked the park and 100 police show up with their guns drawn on the 911 that a woman fired a shot. One woman fired a shot and 100 police show up and take their cars and circle in a park on one alleged shot of gunfire, which we listen to scramblers, especially in Los Angeles, you will hear all sorts of calls continuous over shots were heard where one car and no car show up. Let alone 100 cars, 100 people out of 33 cars. Riding 4 in a car with 2 helicopters, not one but 2, which means policemen came across district lines to show up. See, there are only so many cops in this beat. There's so many beats in a district. You got a district commander, a watch commander for each shift, and then sergeants who supervise teams of officers within each beat. So if 100 officers show up, you're talking about coming in from other beats, so a certain level of call has to go out. And we believe, since we've been able to establish that James Best, the shooter, was in Lamert Park that Saturday, he was in the area. He had a 30-06 rifle, which a long scope on it. Could have shot Khallid, and maybe they thought the shooting had been done.
Sure.
So when they show up, they don't show up for a woman shooting a gun. They show up for something like an assassination. I will show you I'll show you that part again from another camera with the police with their guns out now. But the key piece is when I show you Riverside the next day, where 5 shots were fired for real, the police never draw their guns as they pretend like they try to rescue the boy. Now I say pretend because I'm going to show you there's this one sister who's shooting her last camera. All the cameras were gone. All the police left. All the protesters left. When Khallid walked out front into that program, it was like nobody out there. It was like, damn, where's everybody at? It was really eerie. And so when the shooting go down, you see this sister, what we saw here on the East Coast was this sister giving her profile from the front of the building, and the shots rang out over her head. And you see the shooting go on over her shoulder. You're familiar with that shot? And she turns around and looks, and you see the people gathering around the shooter, and then you see them dragging him out, dragging his face on the concrete. You know why the police drug his face on the concrete? Because they just knew that he was dead. In fact, when they cut the photo where you see, this is where the media works, this is why I say the National Security Council, because you watch the coordination of the media. When the shooting go down and you see the shot of assassination, the next perception you get is that when you look over your shoulders, that the police showed up right after the shooting. 15 minutes went down before the police even ran up to try to rescue the boy. They never pulled their guns like they already knew the shooters personally. In other words, I'm a policeman and shots ring out, I pull my weapon ass, and I'm stepping up, I'm on the scope. These police show up with their sticks drawn and then walk around the circle. You're going to see them walking around the circle where the boy's getting kicked, thinking that when they go to grab the boy, he's dead. And drag him like he's dead. Drag that face across that concrete like he did. And the police swear they drew their guns. But I'm going to show you this from every angle. They never once draw their guns. They already knew no shooter was going to shoot at them. Just very, very, very subtle things that give you strong indications of the excessive level of coordination. Now, how many of you all know this brother Brock? He does Reparations. He's an older brother. You've seen him in the Final Call or the Spotlight of different magazines. He speaks for Reparations. He was with Best the Sunday before the shooting, doing a TV show in Portland, Oregon on Reparations, ABC TV. And he said Best told him that day he was going down to L.A. to take care of some business. Premeditation. How long before the shooting did the boy know he was going to do the shooting? What we found out when we investigated James Best was this, that in November, at the time of the King College speech, he gets $25,000 cash from an unnamed source. Buys a brand new car. Hasn't had a job in 2 years. Now, Best is, in his psychological profile, Best is a brother who's legend in his own mind. He felt with his dreams that Elijah Muhammad had come to him on the mothership and told him he was to be the national spokesperson. Now, the line the national spokesperson went, Malcolm, Farrakhan, Khan. But Best felt he's supposed to be national spokesperson due to his metaphysical thing. But the people who know the brother first said, brother, you know, that's beyond your reach, okay? You know, no one took him seriously as that brother, but he, in his own mind. Now, the media immediately tried to make Best look like he was no criminal record. I'll show you every newspaper in the country on one day saying no criminal record. On Monday, shot on Sunday. Sunday, you see the shooting of the shooting, the picture of the shooting, and the dragging of Khallid through the gymnasium. That's all you see on the first day. On the second day, they start with the killing, showing him speaking at this rally with the little white guy sitting at the table. And then another piece is they show him sitting talking about he should gouge the elected officials in gasoline, so that came the next day. And they then had to admit that the boy had violent tendency. Now, how violent was this tendency, and what type of person do you get to do a murder? Now, CIA worked on something called MK Ultra and MK Delta that dealt with mind control. Now, let's put mind control, let's put the Manchurian candidate in there. Let's go get the movie with Frank Sinatra and Lawrence Harvey called The Manchurian Candidate. And let's look at that movie where people were hypnotized and suggested to murder even their own friends in a hypnotic state. Sitting, in this case they did it on a stage in front of thousands of witnesses to show the power of mind control. This was Chinese to Americans, or Vietnamese to Americans. I mean, this was Vietnam War period, so they was playing that up big. And they took that movie out to public after Kennedy was assassinated because of Oswald meeting the Manchurian profile. And so that movie was, and I think I held up 20 more years before it got shown by the public. Anyway, that movie, Parallax U, La Femme Nikita, other movies, Telephone, when you grab into the setting up of a program killer. In absence of public verification by known sources who never admit to things they've done. After the people that jumped out the window on LSD, they still never admit to shit until everybody did. But they tried to say that this boy was a nonviolent man. And I'll even show you a man in Seattle who said that this guy's name is Charles James. He said, "This is best, I've never known to do anything like that with a gun." The second thing Charles James said is, "I know for a fact that Khallid Muhammad took his ex away and he wanted to get at Khallid for doing that." The key thing is, he says, "I know for a fact." The reality is it was Brother Wazir Muhammad, the regional director of the nation, who did everything. Khallid had absolutely nothing to do with it. But the media suggested that as the motive. See, someone does something and you must have motive. Oswald shoots Kennedy because secretly he felt Kennedy was getting too close to Castro. Or was he passing out that flyer one day because the day before he's passing out a flyer when he was with Castro. The next day he was against Castro, passing out another set of flyers. In fact, you usually take the person and have them doing all kind of weird shit beforehand where their values look hard to perceive. Now, this guy best gets his 20, 30,000 in November. Now, November is an interesting moment because that's when Collins gives the King College speech. Now, the ADL doesn't put the ad in the paper until January or early February. But first they raid the mosque in New York around January 8th or January 9th. They try to raid the mosque in New York. Now, there's much controversy in New York surrounding the mosque in New York and Dr. Collins. So to raid that mosque is intriguing in hindsight. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. When they had his raid on the mosque colonies in New Jersey, just as a matter of fact of his warlord thinking, when he gets up to the mosque, he sees some of the ministers of the local mosque nearby cities, and ministers and study group leaders actually standing behind the police barricade. When he gets there, the barricade says he knocks the barricade over, goes inside the barricade area, which is up to the mosque door, sees the other brothers behind the barricade, goes and in spite of police telling him don't touch it, pulls the barricade back, exposes the brothers, and sends them inside their own headquarters. That's Khallid. That's Khallid. You can't barricade him on a home protection deal. He won't stop for the law. So in spirit, the law would worry about that type of thinking. So this guy Best is supposedly suspended from the nation 3-4 years ago for doing things that the nation didn't want done. Now it's pretty hard to have revenge at the nation and you're going to go shoot a suspended member. Okay? Don't add up. So this motive and then the people misvouching for his personality were the wife's initial offering for this is what we found. One little sister, the next day, Tuesday, after they come out with the Seattle police chief says Best has no criminal record. The citizens, they go to some street fest in Seattle, and they say Best has no personality like that. They go to Fresno, and he had been before that, and no guy like that. Guy calls me from LA and said, I did time with this dude in Chino, which is a jail in LA. He said, I did time with this dude, man. In fact, we even busted him a couple of times in the butt. He said, but he's very intelligent, very intellectual, and in the jail we thought maybe he was an informant. Just drop that in your hat. Next call, I do a radio show, so come on to KZLH next morning and tell us what you see from D.C., which is, I'm seeing M. Pump, he was killed, is shot in South Central, And if he was only shot in the foot, he's up walking around, he's doing okay, which was false. He wasn't up walking around the next day, and he wasn't shot in the foot. But they trivialized that publicly to lessen apprehension for retaliation. Now, so you go to January, February, the ADL takes out the ad, the $47,500 ad in the New York Times, alleging that Khallid is anti-Semitic, running the King College speech. 3 months late, but in 3 months' time, they studied something. Something they studied. Now, go back. August, you got the March on Washington. They denied Minister Farrakhan access to the March on Washington. Ben Chavis, on behalf of Rabbi Saperstein, who authorized the march, tells the minister he can't participate because the Jewish people would withdraw their funding. In the Take Black Jewish Relations 93, you hear me jump on the minister for meeting with them rabbis, saying that them reform rabbis he was meeting with don't run nothing. And that to meet with them, who are still attacking me and others, hurts me and others who are muddying up their credibility while you're saying they're okay because they're meeting with you. And so those junior reform rabbis are headed by Rabbi Saperstein, the godfather of the reform rabbis, who after all that meeting in May, June, and July, still deny him access to the march, the okey-doke march on Washington in August. Now, they get mad at the Nation of Islam, and the final call does a cover saying, Pharaoh, let my people go, with Ben Chavis, Jesse Jackson, all their pictures on the cover. Right? Follow me now. We're going May, the barn, June, meeting with the rabbis, playing the violin. July, the word comes down, no march on Washington. August, no march on Washington for Farrakhan. Final call cover goes, Pharaoh, let my people go. Boom, September, Black Caucus meeting. Remember that? They had that big Black Caucus table up there where Jesse gets up on the stage and says his piece, and they plan to form a covenant. Covenant. You remember the covenant? They call it for the covenant. You remember this?
Right.
And at this lecture program, they announced that they're going to work together. Ben Chavis tells the minister he didn't appreciate being put on the cover of the final call like that. When the minister gets up there to speak, he says, but if you don't do like what you did, you won't be on the final call like that.
Check.
And then they agreed never to be separated again by the hunkies. And the hunkies watch. This is September. October. November, Khallid does the speech, Best gets the money. Go back to Best 1 second. Best, you heard him say eventually that he was convicted of a violent felony for hurting a person who didn't buy a final call. But what they didn't tell, well, that Muhammad speaks actually then, but what they didn't tell you was that he stomped the man's eye out of his socket. Now, one thing is you cut somebody, another thing is you cut their groin off. You know what I mean? You now exaggerating the thing. Okay, then we find out that in Missouri he kills a man with his brother Henry. And on the day they get sentenced, they get paroled. That reminded me of Alexander Mundy type of shit, you know? They decide now that you're more valuable out of jail, so you can't go to jail for murder. Now, that was in the 60s, 70s, the 70s rather. My friend go to jail with him in the 60s in Chino for stomping the man's eye. 70s, he killed a man in Missouri. He's from St. Louis, born in St. Louis. But he gets paroled today. He's sentenced in St. Louis. They go to Fresno to do probation and parole. In Fresno, he moves up into the Nation of Islam. Eventually he gets struck out. But while he in Fresno, he shoots his brother, his own brother. He shoots his brother saying that his brother had a gun and was going to kill him. Only problem is that the police and no one else ever found the gun that precipitated him shooting his brother in the head at close range with a rifle. Now, I'm talking about giving a psychological tendency that would make you useful to an agency that would need someone who could handle violence, but when they were in that violent state, were really pretty passive and would even been down in jail. So we're talking about a passive-aggressive personality. Now, you got to do a psychoanalytical breakdown of what person could they get to want to strike out, brother? What brother would want to step up to do Dr. Khallid in these trying times? If you don't agree with him, just let him alone. Let him go on and fight the hungry. If you ain't going to fight the hungry no fear, sir, why stop someone from doing it? It's not logical that you pick him unless you have other goals. So a sister calls in the radio station while I'm on there and says, Steve, a sister who's been in the nation for 18 years, she says, I know this man best, and he has a criminal record. He's a very violent man, and even though the media is painting him one way, I can prove he's somewhere else. And I asked her at the end of the show she would call me. I was by phone in Maryland. She was in L.A., when we were live in L.A. And so at the end of the show, she calls me and tells me an hour and a half, a little history of this guy, James Best. And that's when I finally got the money. He's been in jail. Now, this time in the public right now, the whites are running. He's a nonviolent, no criminal record man. In fact, they're actually building sympathy up for Best by saying that whoever it was that kicked Best while he was on the ground, the police were considering bringing assault charges against him. And what that does is intimidate witnesses. People who saw the second man with the bow tie during the shooting would get intimidated if they got a kick in and then had to trade away testimony to be the felony of a person they were defending themselves against. See, you got to know how to somatically deal with a threat. I killed you because I thought you was going to kill me. They say justification. Understand that? That's a trapping of the court. Anyway. Go from there all the way back up to when they make the covenant, and the final call comes out again with announcing the covenant. We good, never again will the whites break us up. That's why I say, when they go to Baltimore last week and say, never again will the whites break us up, I add again. Meaning you said it once, and then you said it again, now you said it again and again. Never again will the whites break us up again. Because I'm counting, I'm keeping score here. If there's no tabulation, there's no memory. There's no people can repeat the same old mistakes. And I said, I heard someone say that if you don't get with these people here who are coalescing together in the spirit of unity, then you're a traitor to your people. And if that be so, then I don't have to be a traitor to the people. Because unless they confess what they've been doing, I can't get with them unless at least they do it again. See, if no one ever fesses up for what they've done, they will disrespect what they're doing and do it again. So they have to confess before we can reconciliate. There can be no reconciliation without confession. Confess, straighten up, we go forward. No confess, you're vulnerable. And so, the whites strategically picked Khallid as an issue. Now remember, the Senate and the House repudiate Khallid. So when you need the Senate Intelligence Committee and the House Intelligence Committee to go in private session to consider whether a CIA domestic hit is thrown down on a black man, when they go to say, who is Khallid, you've answered that already by bringing Khallid up to them, getting them to condemn him, so that when he comes back around, you say, oh yeah, we hate him. And boom, someone would look the other way for a weekend and make him vulnerable. Another question comes up with, why offer him up to the whites? Seeing that the whites are far worse than anything he ever said. They done. In context. Anyway. Got me in a mission? Huh? All right. They said the warm part. Now I heard into the video. That shit is hot too. All right. to do this. This is the only way we're going to get it. So in the hallway, the dugout until someone calls you and say, lawyers on the field for the release. All right. And that happened right in front of everybody. All right. We're having one of the mission. When we come back on the mission, I got this key video information. I got to have you see. I hope nobody leaves. I got the tape, so we got the raffle tickets here. They have food in the back for the child. Got a couple of books I'm going to be mentioning. There's a book up there called Take a Second Look about the fraternity. There's more piece of that brother mentions me, race for up there with God. He is Jesus factor. Very important book with education of the Negro. Brother, and his totality, he has his totality. The good bottom fluid stuff. Again, there's food and a popcorn fruit and all the good things in the back. And it's going to take about 10 minutes. Muhammad entered the auditorium. He was confronted by one of the protesters. Okay, now this is very important. Now I guess this kind of got to go with y'all from here. Y'all got to get some on the floor here. And what I got to do is take footage and go back with you and just different things within the footage. I help you understand. Now this is Khallid coming in and breaking the procedure of security. Now,
we're showing the very latest pictures from the hospital. Now you can see right there the former Nation of Islam.
Okay, now this is Khallid and brothers. Does this have slow motion on it? Yeah. Which one is slow motion? Motion slow. Okay. That's real slow. That's right. Play. So you're right. Get them, y'all. All right. There you go. Now, notice they're going out the back door that they had agreed to originally. Right? Microphone. Okay. Whoa, they're going out the back door. Now, when they get out that back door, they have 3 cars. These 3 cars are parked. This is the way the back door goes. You kind of come in the back, and then it's like this. So you got 3 limousines laying in the back on a one-way strip, facing the wrong way with the doors locked and the windows up. So when Khallid actually gets to the back of his door, the cars aren't even ready to go. The cars are all facing the wrong way. Anybody do FOI security, any other security, know that you never leave a good vehicle while your principal is inside. 2, the windows are half down or 3/4 up with keys in hand or in the ignition. When the principal begins to wind the speech down, you turn, you pull the cars out, you turn them around, and prepare the cars for leaving. So when Khallid gets out the back door after the shooting, you see little Farrakhan hollering. When Khallid gets out, he can't go in any of the 3 cars they came in because they're all locked in there and would have to go out to just turn around. You with me? That was a heavy breach of security. But he felt that going in, so he wouldn't come in the way they had set up for him to come in. So he jumps out the vehicle. This is little Farrakhan crying. He comes out the vehicle, coming into the compound of the school, and comes straight across the center of the quad up to where Irv Rubin is standing, which you're going to see in this next picture. You're going to see the head of the Jewish Defense League. You're going to see him confronted by Khallid, and Khallid tack searches him and pulls a knife off of him. Pulls a knife off his buddy and pulls a dagger and hits him in a pin off of his other buddy. Now what's important about that is that the ADL, in a weird and unusual request, met with the Riverside police and asked that there be no searching at this lecture. Weird and unusual request from the Anti-Defamation League that they would ask at this lecture that Khallid not be protected. The ADL. The JDL shows up for a demonstration led by Irv Rubin, who weirdly was in Baltimore marching against the other Jewish people saying Farrakhan should be heard. Now, stranger get out here and the cars aren't ready to go. But when the police chief says he should have went out the back, you don't know that the back was any better off than the front. I'm telling you, the back was not better off. It's just, he said that everybody don't know what the condition of the back was. And since you now know it was a gangway with a one-way out, I'm going to show you where the real killer was located. A shooter. Boom. Khallid in a blue suit. That's Khallid the night before at Paul Gibbs' place. Okay, now these are the protesters. These protesters are outside, kept away from the front of the lecture area, but interestingly enough, right before the program starts, all the protesters leave, but Earl Rubin goes inside the event, which is rare for him. Now, when he goes inside the event, after about 15 minutes into the speech, he gets up and walks out. About 20 minutes later, James Edward Best, the eventual one of the shooters, gets locked out of his car, and the police slammed him the car and let him back in. See, you didn't see that in the paper. It didn't run here on the East Coast. Let me show you. Just so that you know, Brother Coakley is all right. I want to show you the police confession that the killer got locked out of his car, and after establishing that he had the right to be in the car, the police opened the car up for him. Now this is Khallid confronting Earl Rubin and JDL. Khallid breaks security, runs straight across and starts flat searching him in his buddy's head. And finds out that they all have weapons on them. Now Khallid takes him down. Khallid gets up on him. If Khallid doesn't up to him back up, Khallid does it right then. And after he... There's a couple of bullies. Khallid said, we're going to check it right now. Now Khallid breaks security to do that. Now he explained the back door, and he felt they were going to kill him going in. What's the difference between the back and the front? Other people. In the back, you by yourself. In the front, you got cameras or people coming in or dealing. So anybody else who can see something is your aider and abettor at a time they want to get you in a closed-out area.
What we can tell you is that the shooting occurred outside the museum where Muhammad was giving his speech earlier in the evening. He was started to respond in the parking lot with some reporters and staff members. Some shots rang out. We have some amateur video that was taken at the time, and here's what happened then.
Now this is the 49th shot. This is only him coming through the gymnasium.
There he's being taken into the auditorium. This is the gymnasium where he had spoken just a few minutes earlier. We're told that Muhammad was shot in the right foot. The police tell us that his injury was not very serious. There was a melee that broke out after the shooting as Nation of Islam security people surrounded the gunman, who was described as a black man about 5'10". He was wearing a blue suit. He was pummeled by the security people and other people who were around the shooting at the time. They were told he was beat up rather severely. A 18th photographer by the name of William Lewis witnessed all of this, and here's what he had to say about what he saw. And then all of a sudden, out of my left eye, I see a gentleman trying to yell something. I can see a 45. We all know what 45 look like. And then pop, pop, pop. And pop. Oh, and then people again were just running, screaming, crying.
He said, it was a 45. We all know what a 45 looks like. Wasn't but one problem. It was a 9mm. We got 5 gunshots. Pow, 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 pow. Yeah, you can hear 5 gunshots, but we got one other problem. We got 11 bullet holes. We got Khallid having a bullet in his leg, a piece of a bullet in his other leg, another bullet in my brother's back, 3 bullets in the big brother's stomach, another bullet in another brother's leg. We got too many holes and too few shots. All right? This is the magic bullet move with a hard wall and stuff. Remember? The one that had to fly around and all of that. Well, you oh, up there. Okay, I'm pointing down here. Gotcha. Fast forward.
The police have him in custody now. He had to be forcibly removed from the people who had detained him. And in fact, I'm told police had some trouble getting him off the grounds here and back to the station. He was put in a squad car, and apparently they had some trouble just getting the squad car off the campus here.
Okay, but we'll probably talk a little bit later on. Thanks a lot.
Hello, everybody's on Bill Blower, Channel 9 News. Back to you in Hollywood.
Thank you, sir. Muhammad. He was shot after giving a speech in Riverside. Our Pat Anthony joined us live from Riverside now. It's very late. Pat?
Sylvia, we know a little bit more about what transpired here a few minutes after 6 o'clock tonight when Muhammad finished his speech here at the Student Recreation Center here at UC Riverside. We're told, a few people behind me, we're told that he left his security after the speech for some unknown reason. The security that existed inside the building. He wandered outside into the parking lot where there were 50 or 60 people. It was at that point that he was shot. With the pictures you see now is the moment after he was shot, when he was shot in the right foot and hauled away. Again, the unusual aspect of all of this is that he left his security. Perhaps may know that the Nation of Islam takes security very seriously for its senior leaders, and it's rather unusual for him to just walk out and breach his own security in this way. This is the scene he's hauled away and taken into a hospital, Riverside Community Hospital, where we're told he's being treated. We haven't gotten an official condition yet.
You got a military man.
We just got word he's in stable condition. There was photographers around here. There were quite a few people out here witnessed the shooting. One of them was a photographer with the Associated Press by the name of William Lewis. Here's what he said happened to the gunman after the shooting.
They
were kicking and stomping the head of the alleged man who shot him. And that's what the pandemonium was. And the police were trying to protect the man who shot him to get him out. And they were basically dragging, they drugged the shooter out by the nape of his neck. People screaming, people still getting their kids in. They had to kind of throw him into the car to get him out. And then the people wouldn't allow him to get out. They didn't want the police to get him. They wanted to get him. They wanted to finish him off. Well, they didn't.
I remember what he said it was a 45. We all know what a 45 was.
He was dressed in a dark suit and a bow tie, which is typical of what the type of attire that people in the Nation of Islam wear. Not aware if he belonged to that religious affiliation or if he was wearing it as...
What did he say? He said bow tie. He said he was wearing a dark suit and a bow tie, right? Okay, I want to show you a picture of James Best on the ground with his straight tie.
How about that?
You got that? See, I'm going to show you him being drugged with his straight tie hanging off his shirt. I'm going to show you the front page of the San Francisco Examiner. Front page of the San Francisco Examiner. Right here with the red circle part. It says, the gunman wearing a dark suit and bow tie that is characteristic dress of the Nation of Islam fired repeatedly, said police detective Gary DeVena. There you go, brother. You might forget it if I come close, will that help you? There you go, right on there. Key. Very good. Great. A man wearing a dark suit and a bow tie. Got it? Got it. Now let's go to the video tape. Now like my man one-on-one. Now let's go to the video. Okay? Let me see if I can find the spot where I can put it right up before you. Let me see here. Okay, one other thing I have to show you. Let me just do this before I put the video on. Each day, certain misinformation came out. I mentioned to you that there are only 4 days in all. The 4 days in all. Don't move that. You only know what you're looking for. Don't move nothing. Everybody, put your hands up. Okay, now I'm gonna try. I need to show you this one particular article that you didn't see, you couldn't have seen. So I gotta spread it for you before I go back to the videotape. You must see this one piece. I got all these different pictures up here of Best with his straight tie on, and you're gonna see him with his straight tie on. But I need to show you what happened when Best, here we go, so that you know, Brother Copley right, get it on this one, LA Times, Thursday, this is the last day they ran a story. Locked out of car, suspect got police help before Muhammad shooting.
Where's that?
45 minutes into the lecture, everybody's inside but Irv Rubin. Okay, everybody's inside but Irv Rubin and the shooters. And he gets locked out of his car. And the police, helping a black man in a white neighborhood,
In a car.
Because they love black men dressed like Nation of Islam, which they love it all. They say they call the owner of the car, which is in Washington State, and established that he had the right to use the car, and they slim jim the car and let him back in it. And there he pulls out his 3 other 9mm with his 30-06 rifle that was in the trunk. And he moves his car 2 blocks to the other side of the campus because he was going to come out the other way where you saw the fence and stuff at. Well, you'll see in a little bit where they cut a hole in the fence. Where the shooter could have got him in the back. There was a hole cut out of the brush and a hole cut in the fence to get him on the street so he could get away without anybody inside of the trees and the bushes knowing what had happened outside the trees and the bushes. But you needed to see for a fact that he was locked out of his car. Campus officer opened vehicle for James Best, who was described as polite. An hour later, Best wounded the black nationalist and 5 others. I want you to see that for a fact. When I was flying that Thursday from D.C. to L.A., I picked it up in Columbus, but now it was down to this side in Columbus. Campus police helped Best unlock car before shooting. It's down in that big. But in your city, it wasn't big at all. No.
Wasn't even there.
In fact, it never made it. You're right. Now, I'm telling you, Monday, Sunday they saw the shooting, Sunday night. Monday they saw it. Tuesday they saw it. Everything west of the Mississippi, everything east of the Mississippi was cut off after Tuesday. The West Coast got Wednesday and Thursday only because the people on Wednesday changed the story that said, watch this, the police said that the reason Best shot him was because he had been fired by Khallid, but it was the people in L.A. One knowledgeable source told the Times that Best was suspended about 3 years ago from his post of mosque in Seattle by former Nation of Islam minister Khallid Muhammad, who's now the regional West Coast representative of the final call. Wazir did it. But the people had to force him up to put this in the paper to give away the fake motive.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That. All right. Now, let me see. Okay. Now, one other thing that's kind of weird. The weekend before the shooting, this appears in the final call. This is a weird story. A new black-Jewish relationship. Nation of Islam test change in ADL position. ADL's position had changed. It appears as if Abraham Foxman, the key ADL point man that attacked me all over the country, Foxman writes that report on anti-Semitism. Brother Charles got back there. Foxman wrote that report articulating the key anti-Semites around the country. It says the invitation came after Abraham Foxman, ADL National Director, told the Chicago Defender, quote, I'm saying now that the Nation of Islam and Minister Farrakhan are not my enemies, and I'm not their enemy. This is the weekend. This is May 25th. This is the weekend of the shooting. What's May 30th? I smell a rat, yes. And the original story, which appeared in the Chicago Defender, was even more conciliatory, even suggesting that the ADL would help the nation develop a youth program.
Oh, no.
And I must say this, I hope that no condition of getting white money but public housing projects would jeopardize another brother's life for the jobs aren't worth the brother. Now, go back to the videotape. Tell me. You know, I'm going fast. I always wait too long to get to this part. But I gotta put the climate in there because you don't want to do this out of context because this is not about hurting anybody. This is about trying to get the truth out to protect
2 other people who received minor injuries in the fight, the melee that broke out as the gunman was subdued. We're told those injuries, as we say, are very minor. That's the latest here from Riverside. I'm Pat Anson. Let's go back to you.
Pat, you told us earlier the gunman is in custody right now. Police said anything else about him?
Not at all. Police here are being very... And nobody is saying anything from you. You see... Nobody's really had that much to say.
Thanks a lot.
what?
But Charles has no benefit.
And
And Riverside Police have secured a portion of the campus. They even plan to stay here for a while, gathering some more evidence on this case. We also have an update given to us within the past hour on the condition of Dr. Muhammad. Apparently, he did go through surgery. He had suffered a bullet wound to the lower left leg, and his right leg had also been grazed by a bullet. He is apparently in stable condition tonight. That's the very latest from here in Riverside. This is Gordon Tokomaki.
I asked Brother Khallid, what happened to the bullet that was in your body when they operated on you? He said, well, strange thing happened. The nurse came to me and said, when I asked her where you going with the bullet, she said, we have to give it to the district attorney here in Riverside. So he said, well, I want it. He said, I can't give it to you, I have to give it to the police. Next day, the police come to the hospital in plain clothes, informing him that their detective, Brother Khallid, asked him to sign a release to have the bullet given to them. He said, don't you have a bullet already? They say, no, we're asking for the bullet with this request. He said, well, I refuse to give it. Now go give me the bullet. The bullet still ain't showing up. I asked Brother Steve Washington, who you saw with the other yellow African suit on the Johnny News show, who asked Khallid a good question, gave him a chance to fight before Slim asked him the second question. He had a bullet in his back. He went to another hospital. Them brothers that were shot out there were left out there for 30 minutes without ambulance care as the police locked everybody into the campus. All the 4 entranceway leading into the campus, they locked the gates. At this gate with barbed wire, again, they're keeping the public housing project on one side of the school, keeping all them away from the school. So you got 4 entranceways, they close all these gates and they lock everybody in and bring in all these big old riot troops. Khallid just gets out before they close the gate with a brother who had a convertible sitting there. He jumps in the brother's convertible, shot with his son, and they drive through the gates just before they close them, else he would have been locked in there. The only person they let out were the shooters. There was a man in a bow tie. Just like the police saw him then, they saw him like Khallid saw the man in the bow tie. Other people have verified seeing the man in the bow tie doing the shooting, while Beth in the straight tie was doing the shooting. But remember the CIA move, you always leave the patsy on the scene. You leave the one man who you can put anything on, while all the other people carefully slip away. Usually they psychotic, half in, half out. But just like Oswald or Ruby, you usually kill them too. In fact, we believe Beth, who allegedly talked to anyone, who even pleaded not guilty. He pleaded not guilty. We believe that it is in the best interest of finding out who eventually is at the bottom of it by getting the person who he loves more than anybody else on earth to talk with him. Not because we suspect collusion between them, but because we know this is the only person he would tell everything to. That's Mr. Farmer. That's the only person he loves enough to tell everything to. And if the minister wants to find out if the spirit of John Ali returns, then he needs to talk with Beth to see if Beth be willing to tell him what Ali Agha told the Pope when he went to see him. That's the man who shot the Pope. Remember, Pope got shot in the belly, he went to see the man who shot him? Anyway. Yes, sir. What did you tell the Pope?
Thinking that the gunman may have been bumped or shoved before he fired, or was this just a bad shot? Well, at least 2 of our witnesses said the presence of that one large man that you saw there may have prevented Dr. Muhammad from getting killed. He did sustain at least 2.
Khallid said when he looks up and the shooting starts, and when he gets tackled, he look up, he don't see nobody on top of him but the brothers in the black suits. Now what happened was, there was a group of Bloods and Crips who were there, who were subordinate security. When the ADL asked that there be no searching, they pulled the nation off the doors and put the Bloods and the Crips on wearing black. See, they unify around color. They give up the blue, give up the red, they wear the black, right? So they wear the black in unity, new direction. So brother puts them on a subordinate security. So right before the shooting, someone turns in and said, man, you need to move his hand boys out the picture. He turns to the right, and Chicano said, man, why the Chicanos and the blacks going to get together? Turns to the center, the shooting starts. 1, 2, 3. Move the brothers, get the question, got the shot. But when he looks up, he tells the brother who asked him to move, the brother says, we've been here all day together, I'm not going to move them, they deserve to be here. Turns and answers the question, shots break out, Says he stopped him and shot the big brother, tackled him. Says he looked up and ain't nothing but black shirts with him on the ground. Who asked him to move the brother? It was the brother who was in charge of security. The brother who was in charge of the security that day is the one who asked Khallid to remove the subordinate security before the shooting. Again, I said some people have been punished. Just leave it at that point right now, because it ain't all over until it's over. Yeah.
Muhammad. Thanks for that report. The shooting happened outside a gymnasium on the UC Riverside campus. Take a look. This is what the scene looked like from the air shortly after it happened. And you can see many of the people who came to hear Muhammad speak.